Admit it, Star Trek's first episode is painfully average. There's a certain sacredness fans tend to attach to pilot episodes. They're supposed to be bold, defining statements, the creative DNA of an entire franchise. But when you go back and watch Star Trek's very first episode, The Cage, and even the later broadcast version, The Man Trapped, in the original 1966 run, you start to realize something a little uncomfortable. It's not the groundbreaking masterpiece we like to remember. It's fine. Sometimes even painfully average. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it hasn't yet become Star Trek. The Cage, the original unaired pilot, is perhaps the most fascinating example of ambition outrunning execution. On paper, it has everything that should work. A philosophical alien encounter, psychological exploration, a mysterious planet, and a starship captain wrestling with authority and illusion. Yet the pacing drags in places where it should be building tension, and the philosophical themes feel more stated than earned. It's a story constantly reaching for depth, but only occasionally touching it. Part of the issue is tone. The Cage is unusually slow, almost meditative in a way that clashes with what audiences in the 1960s expected from televised science fiction. Instead of leaning into the sense of adventure that later defined the franchise, it lingers on dialogue, heavy exchanges that feel more like stage readings than a living, breathing universe. Even the iconic illusion sequences on the Talos IV planet, while conceptually strong, feel visually restrained and emotionally distant. When the series was retooled and The Man Trapped became the first aired episode, the problem shifted rather than disappeared. Suddenly, the show swung in the opposite direction, away from philosophical introspection and toward a more straightforward monster of the weak structure. A salt-craving creature disguised as a familiar face stalks the crew aboard the ship. It's tense enough, but it lacks the thematic ambition people now associate with the franchise. Instead of boldly going anywhere meaningful, it mostly circles a simple survival plot. What makes this especially striking in hindsight is how different Star Trek would quickly become. Within a handful of episodes, the show would begin developing its moral identity, exploring ethics, diplomacy, and the human condition in space. But the very first episode doesn't really hint at that future. It feels like a prototype, still searching for its voice, still unsure whether it wants to be philosophical drama or sci-fi adventure. Even the characters, now cultural icons, feel oddly undefined at this stage. The captain is stern, but not yet fully charismatic. The crew dynamics haven't solidified into the confident ensemble rhythm that would later define the series. There's potential everywhere, but it's not yet organized into something memorable. And yet, calling it average isn't an insult. It's almost reassuring. Because most legendary franchises don't begin as legends. They begin as experiments. Uncertain, uneven, occasionally brilliant, but just as often ordinary. The first episode of Star Trek is proof that greatness isn't always immediate. Sometimes it's built slowly, episode by episode, idea by idea. So yes, admit it, the first episode is painfully average, but maybe that's exactly what makes its legacy more impressive. Because from that average beginning grew something extraordinary.